Let's get started. And we're going to start by talking about quizzes, assessments, and we're going to talk about assignments, quizzes, and surveys. And a lot of this we've been learning ourselves as we go. So we had to do a little bit of review ourselves before this, including as recently as 5 minutes ago. So if you have any questions, we'll try to answer them, but someone else may have an answer. So please jump in at any time with questions. We allowed a lot of time in this session because we're hoping people will work through the tools and explore the tools, try creating some questions, setting up a survey, and setting up an assignment, and just looking at the features there. So we'd like to allow at least half of the time for you to work on your own.
So if you haven't logged into your Brightspace page, if you want to go ahead and do that now, you can access it at oswego.edu/mylearning, or you can use, you can see that first part of the link in, thank you, Casey, for dropping that in the chat. So if anyone wants to grab that, you can throw it into your browser, and it'll ask you to use your LakerNet ID to log on. So then once you're there, you should see all of your courses that are available. So John's going to go navigate to that. So you'll see all of the courses there. There's a tab menu where you can move to your fall courses, anything that extended learning had converted, for fall or summer. And you'll be able to access your course shells in the fall 2022 tab. So wherever you are thinking you are going to create an assignment or your quiz, go ahead and jump into that class.
One which is just a blank template, which should be, where is it? Yeah. I think it was a conversion semester.
My learning Oswego.
Is it possible to create a new course just if we want to, experiment a little bit and we don't want to actually put any assignments in our current courses for next fall?
What selected here was a conversion semester, and those are everyone should have some shells that are development shells that you'll be working in. I believe that's true for people in the fall, but I haven't actually looked at it because I have a course underway now.
Yeah, so I think in the fall, the only classes that extended learning was converting over were people who were fully teaching online.
Right, but I know in SUNY as a whole, people are building the courses in development shells, and then they get copied over to the actual live shells. That's been true certainly this summer, and I know SUNY as a whole encourages that policy. I don't know if we're doing that locally because that's a local decision. What do you see when you look at your menu?
You're welcome to share your screen too.
No conversions or development shells. Okay, so everything we do can be undone, and anything we do today will be working on new assignments, quizzes, and so forth. So you don't really have to worry about that. Okay.
You could also play around in the sandbox too if you're concerned about that.
Okay, so yeah, if people didn't see it, Casey said no conversion or development shells. So that's unfortunate. But in any case, it doesn't matter because you can always create things as long as you don't share them with students or open them. And you're not going to have your fall class students in your classes now, and you can always delete anything you don't want to use. So, so working in your fall shells should be perfectly safe. So let's get started with assignments.
Yeah, so we're gonna, most everything is easily accessible through course tools and then course admin. So that's really where you get to see all of the different tools and different types of assessments and communication tools in Brightspace. So that's where we're going to head now. So if you scroll down to right? I
Yes,
think,
Zoe mentioned, yeah, that there are students in the classes already because they do have the integration with Banner mostly working for students, not with faculty yet, although that may have changed in the last few days. But don't worry about it. The courses are not visible to students, so they won't see anything you do. But as Maggie just noted, get used to going to course tools and course admin because that gives you access to nearly all of the tools you're going to need to build a course, to edit a course, to update a course, to do grading and everything else.
yeah, so if you scroll down, you can see the heading assessment, and right in that first option beneath assessment is assignments. So we're going to go there first.
My
Okay, so if you are working with a course that has been ported over from Blackboard, you might see some assignments in there. But we're gonna, work on creating brand new assignments. So just go ahead and click on that blue new assignment tab. And
Okay,
here,
actually, before you do that, you may want to create categories just to have a category to put it in, because if you have different types of assignments you use, Brightspace does a lot of work where there's categories and then items within the categories, and it's good to probably get used to that. So we'll go to edit category, and we should have an option of adding a category. So we can call this a sample assignment category. And then it'll be easy to make sure you don't accidentally use it during the semester. Call it whatever you'd like, but if you have multiple assignments you use for different things, it's good to have categories for them to make it easier to find things in the future. And then we'll close that and we'll go to new assignment. You can label your assignments any way you want. That's true. Yes.
and yeah, you can label those categories anything you want to. So if you have a series of short writing assignments that you want to kind of have grouped together, you can, give them a shared category title. And if you, have a, project and you have several scaffolded assignments in that, and you want to keep those all within the same category, it just gives you a nice way to keep that organized. So,
and there was this note that this was unlike Blackboard. Yes, that we're returning to get a lot of the features that we lost when we downgraded to Blackboard a few years back, that we've got a lot of new features coming in. And for those who had been here when we had Angel, we get back most of the features we lost, as well as some additional ones. And we have lost a few important things, or at least that will affect people doing algorithmic category. So, okay, yeah, it's really best if you could open a window. If you have the Pulse app, you might be able to do that on a mobile device too. The edit category, where is the?
if you're in the assignments kind of overall.
Let's cancel that to see, let's get back so we can be a bit more careful in going through this. So what you would do is, the edit category is right under assignment. So when you open the assignment window, you have three options: new assignment, edit categories, or more actions. And the more actions are to reorder things, to preview things, to look at the log of things. And yes, we'll enable that. And we could make things visible or hide things from users and so forth. So, or you could delete items you don't want. So we're not going to do any of those now, but you may want to delete things you created here. Some of my assignments from last year just did port over. So, so now we went to edit category. We added the category of sample assignment. We're going to the new assignment tool now, and it asks you for a name. And we will call this sample one, but you can call it, except we should probably delete the untitled. Sample one. And now assignments could be graded, or they might not be if you're using it for formative assessment. But let's just suppose we're going to make this worth 20 points, let's say. And it's going to be in the grade book. And then we'll go over the grade book in our next session. But basically, you can reset it to be ungraded, or you could edit or link to an existing gradebook column. In general, unlike Blackboard, any activities that you create that are graded are not automatically going to go into the grade book unless you connect them to the grade book. So that is one additional step, but it adds a bit more flexibility, as we'll see. So let's say it's going to go in the grade book, and we're going to create and link to a new grade item, which by default will be the name that you had with a number of points. So if you already had it in the grade book and this is replacing an existing column, then you would choose the link to an existing grade item option. So we'll click OK, and we'll just use the name that was assigned.
You can go ahead and if you have a due date in mind, you can click on that next box, add your due date.
We'll make this due tomorrow to give people a little bit of time.
Yeah,
on it.
default
Okay.
is 11:59 p.m. So you can, change that in whatever way you see fit for your class. So in the next box, the instructions, great place for you to, give your guidance on submission and what you're looking for. You can, like any of these text boxes, you can insert images or videos. You can even record video and audio to talk about the instructions through the assignment. And then you'll want to head over to the right side.
So just for these basically are the equivalent of the drop boxes that people are used to using in Blackboard, and they have very similar features. So you put the detailed instructions here. You might share a rubric with students in advance and so forth.
And you put math equations in here?
Can, and in fact, one of the things we have here in the editor, and why am I not seeing? Let's expand this. You have
You can
math.
see it at the top.
Yeah,
next to
except
picture.
right now. There we go. Right here, there's a little Greek summation sign. Well, summation sign, a Greek capital sigma, and you have a choice of a graphical equation, a LaTeX equation, a MathML equation, or a chemistry equation. So you have a number of ways of inputting it.
I don't see that on mine.
And make sure it's expanded full screen. Otherwise, you'll have to hit the 3 dots on the right-hand side to see the rest of it. Yeah, is it called Brightspace Plus? I think it's Pulse, isn't it? P-U-L-S-E.
I thought it was Pulse too.
It is
Brightspace
Pulse, John. I
Pulse.
mistyped.
Oh, okay.
Question about the due dates. Could we change the default time?
Put in any time you'd like.
But if we don't want to change it, if we want all our assignments to be due at 5 o'clock, for example, can we just set that?
I don't know. I think it may be because in my course, I had a lot of things at 11:59 p.m. It may have just used your last one or the most common. I don't know how that's set up.
I came up at 11:50.
Okay, so it does. So I don't know if there's a setting. I have not yet seen a setting where you can set a global default for
I
that.
haven't come across that either.
It's possible, but whenever you create it, it's going to ask you, you can just type in a new due
You
date.
mean setting your own?
Yeah, like setting your own default.
Yeah.
time.
I would imagine.
Seen it, and I've
That would be
looked through a
useful.
lot of the settings,
Yeah, I
but
mean, if you don't use
Yeah.
11, I have
Right.
to use 11. Even Blackboard on it, it takes an extra.
put in your instructions and let's pretend we have some there. And then you would set the availability dates and conditions. The start date is when it becomes accessible by students, when they can see it, when they can interact with it. And we can make that right now. By default, it went to 12:01 a.m. Because I guess if
Beginning
you're
of the
ending
day.
at 11:59, you'll start right at the beginning of the next day. And the end date we already established. Well, with an end date, you don't have to close it out. If you want it to disappear from students' view or so they would no longer be able to access it, you could do it. But we already did put in a due date. The question is, if you want to enforce that by making the assignment box go away, then you could put in an end date, or you could just leave it open. And if you want to penalize late submissions, you can do that. But I think you can just leave it like that. So we'll leave that. Now, there are release conditions, which is sort of like the conditional release in Blackboard, but much, much more flexible. So you could have assignments open up depending on what students have done before this. you can upload a document with instructions. I believe so.
Yeah.
I noticed there's a file upload right here. So
Mm-hmm.
you could upload a PDF or a Word document if you'd like. There's also, you could link to other activities in the course. You could attach a web link to it. If you have the instructions elsewhere, you could have a document in Google Drive that it will link to, or you can attach from OneDrive if you're a Microsoft OneDrive user. And so yeah, so there's lots of ways of getting stuff in there. And it's a pretty full-featured editor. You could even have a YouTube video or some other video out there by doing the insert stuff, which has a lot of things you can connect to. You could have something in Flickr or Panopto or other places, or a file on your computer. So it's a multimedia tool that it's like the Blackboard Mashup tool, except it actually works. So, and you can insert images and pretty much all the rest. It's a pretty good edit. It's a very good editor in general. And if you want, you could just record a video, as Maggie said, with instructions or oral instructions, and that would be the instructions that students would then see. So,
John and
Yes.
Maggie, just a quick question. Sometimes I like to copy and paste stuff from like a Word document into this instruction box. And one thing that I liked about Blackboard was that they had that tool to remove all formatting. Is there something similar here?
The easiest way of doing it is just doing a right click or a control click on a Mac if you don't have the left and right button set up, and just choose paste and use
Without formatting.
paste without formatting.
So it'll take the formatting that's. in
Gotcha.
there.
Yeah, I see it
Yeah.
in a Windows machine. It's paste is plain text. Thanks.
I think there's
Yeah,
a-
or paste plain text would
There's
work.
a key shortcut as well. I think I know it, my hands know it. I don't know it's, I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it's a Control-Shift-V or something to that matter, but there's a key command to it.
And Casey has a note about the math equations. For those who do not love LaTeX, as some of us do, or MathML, use the graphical equations and it will create accessible alt text automatically. So that's good advice. And if you're not used to writing in some, one of LaTeX or MathML, it's a really nice, simple editor that's pretty easy to create graphical or mathematical equations.
And that's the same editor, whether you're creating an assignment or you're creating a discussion post, or just files in the course.
Or sending an email to students
Right.
and so forth.
You have these options, consistently throughout the course.
And one thing, this is getting a little ahead of ourselves, but
Mhm.
one option you have is, you could say, embed the student's name by just putting in first name. And then follow the instructions so you can personalize the assignments. And if you really want to get fancy, you could have different assignments depending on, going back to the release condition, you can create different assignments depending on how someone did on a prior assessment. So if someone is doing really well in the course and it is excelling, you could give them a more challenging assignment. If someone is struggling with things, you might choose to give them something else that's a little more foundational. Or again, you can have release conditions that will only make things available once they've achieved certain goals. So you could have them require them to take a pretest on something before they do this. You could require them to reach a certain score on a pretest. You could require, well, there's many things you can use as conditions, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. And also you can have, just as we did before with all learning management systems, you can create different types of access for people who have special conditions. So if someone is, someone is hospitalized, you can extend the due dates on it and so forth. Or, there's similar things with the quizzes where you can give people extra time if you do have timed exams and so on.
You can do that for every assignment.
With pretty much everything, every assignment or quiz.
And I believe you can do that, like for, you can set those rules, like in quizzes, you can set those rules for students, so you don't have to do it every single quiz, but it's done for all quizzes.
You can
would-
create a group of students and then apply the rule to a group, I'm pretty sure. And then you also have the assignment submission options. One is these assignments could be individual groups. There's a group tools where you can define your groups, and that can be done automatically, or you could manually set them. And so let's say we're going to do it individually. We'll talk about groups tomorrow. And you can choose a category it's going to go to. And we just created the sample assignment category. And that's where we want it to be placed. The non-essay was what we
That's
were talking
another
about
example.
as a joke in the session earlier. And here you get a lot of choices with the file submissions. You could have them submit a file. You could have them type something in the editor if that's what you want. It could be an on-paper submission, or it could be something observed in person. So if you're doing it where they're in a classroom, let's say, you could do that.
Let's say it's a class presentation, right? So they may not be submitting an actual file to this particular assignment, but you can still use the associated rubric and, put it into the grade book through here. But you can observe, the submission in person and assess it through Brightspace.
99.9% of the time,
you're gonna
it's
use
going to be a file submission, unless they're doing presentations or something similar. But then you don't even need to create this. You could just create a document with instructions and use a rubric that does not have to be associated with the assignment. So as long as you share information or, evaluation thing. Now here, you could allow students to have an unlimited number of submissions. For example, as you saw there from some of the stuff that moved over from my course before I deleted most of this, you could allow unlimited submissions. I haven't let them do podcasts where basically they can submit it, they get feedback, they can submit it again, they get feedback, and then, you choose how you're going to grade those. I basically let them do it as many times as they like until they're happy with the grade. You could allow a single submission. So, that is a little different in Blackboard. You do have the option of allowing a specific number of attempts. Here, it's either unlimited or just one. Well, actually, I take that back. This is per submission, because you might have a time where you might be asking students to include a video and an audio file, or you might have them submit a Word document and a photo or something. If they don't embed it in there. So you could allow them to submit multiple documents in a single submission, or just one file. Now, this is a useful tool if you want to make sure that students are uploading what you want them to submit. You could restrict it to only PDF files. You could submit it as annotatable files so that you're able to use the annotation tool, which is so much better than the crap that we had in Blackboard ever since they lost that. Originally, Blackboard had, when we first adopted it, Blackboard had pretty good embedded editing tools where you could add notes to students' work and so forth. But we lost that when their contract broke and they tried to build their own, and it just was kind of awful. But basically, annotatable files include things like Word, PDFs, Google Docs,
Images. You can click on that question mark and it will show you, all of the different files that are associated with an annotatable file.
Yeah, so if we go here, so these are the things that are submitted. Okay, so docs, RTFs, open document formats, PowerPoint slides in various ways, Excel files, JPEGs, PNG files, TIFFs, both versions of TIFFs, GIFs, and PDFs. So, that's it's a pretty nice range of tools there. So I can get back to the, there. Okay, so, those are things where you can directly provide feedback on the document itself and with annotations. So, or you could restrict it to only images and videos or custom file types where you get to choose what formats you're willing to accept. So let's go with the annotatable files because that's the easiest to provide feedback with. And if you want to, you could get notifications whenever there's things uploaded. That could, if you've got a reasonably large class and you're allowing multiple submissions, you may not want to use that.
Might be a lot.
But if it's something that students might submit at any time, or if you're using it for some type of an extra credit activity and it's not something where you expect things necessarily to come in at specific dates, then you might want to do that so you get notified. And then for the evaluation and rubric, you basically can add a rubric, either one that already exists, or you can build it from here. For almost anything you do in Brightspace, there are many ways to do it. You can either do it standalone in the tool for it, or you can do it in the place where it's needed. And I see we've got a lot of chat going on. Um, So it's a math type equation editor that's being used, which is just basically the same as what's in Blackboard, okay? Can you go over what can be edited through bulk edit and what has to be edited by going through the assignment? The bulk edit is mostly if you have a series of document or that whole list of things where you can delete them, you can move them into a category and a few basic tools.
Yeah, so once we save and close this particular assignment, we can show you, where that bulk edit is. It'll be with the full list of assignments that have been created for the course.
And so there was a question of whether you can use more than one option for submission. Not really, but among the options are any files. So if you just leave it open to any submission, you would get both of those.
And you can also do that custom file type, and you can type in the ones that you want.
And there's a question whether Brightspace can read pages from Mac. Virtually nothing other than Pages will read Pages. So, but in Pages, what most Mac users are used to doing is saving in a format, which is a more open format, which could be any of those formats. So you could save it as a PDF and so forth. And I think most students by now have learned that they probably want to save it in some other.
I always put like in my instructions that, I cannot read Pages files, so that they need to make sure they're saving it as something else. And I've not had many issues since I've started including that.
Yeah, the last time I had students submit something from Pages was probably about 12, 14 years ago. It's back when it had a different name, whatever.
I definitely had some things more recent, but when I put it very clearly in the instructions that I cannot read it, nor will I, be able to grade it, students, seem to really get that and want their things graded. So
there's a question from Michelle about whether rubrics and assignments are easy to share across sections. No, they should be, and they probably will be when we get the Learning Object Repository active. That's one of the tools that SUNY has not yet activated, partly because they're working on setting it up in the hierarchy of the whole SUNY system. Because one of the things that makes this a bit more challenging for SUNY and everyone, but it offers a lot more power, is that we're all running in different tenants in the overall hierarchy, where SUNY as a whole is at the top level. Each institution is a level below that. And then all of the departments and organizations within each institution are below that, including each department on the campus. And that's not fully set up yet. And then each instructor is below that. And then the students appear below that. So what happens is you can set up a learning object repository at any level. And so it's even conceivable that there could be a SUNY-wide learning object repository where people could create and share things. In fact, the Fact2 Council is working on a task group that's going to be working on that next year with some way of indexing it and tagging information so that people could, in principle, save some good examples that could be shared with the whole SUNY system. There's a lot of work to go before that we're there. But right now, the only way I've seen of being able to use rubrics across sections is to export the rubric as a file, then import it into the other course. So it only takes about maybe 30 seconds to a minute or so. But right now, when you have your own individual learning object repository and that's enabled as a tool, we should be able to put things we want to share across courses in there and just import them from there when we need them. So it should be really easy to share that across sections, but we're not there yet. We may be by the fall semester, but not quite yet. Okay. Well, one thing you could do is if you use the custom options on the import, you could only allow those submissions, which would be a pretty clear signal to students when they're told that that file type is not accessible or it cannot be uploaded. That would be a good way of resolving it. We multiple sections of the same course into one. That's something that has to be done at the administrator level. And in fact, most of that is being done at the SUNY level right now, and it requires support tickets going to SUNY. That that should change. But right now, much of the management that used to occur locally is happening at the SUNY level. So it's being done, but right now there's only a few people doing it at the SUNY level, so it's a little bit slow. There is some issue about having due dates and availability dates being different. You have to have the item to be available for the students in order to be able to, to submit it.
Think of the availability as the visibility, right? So you want students to be able to see what that assignment is. And if you have the due date beyond a date that it is not visible or accessible to the students, then they're not going to be able to submit the assignment.
But, in general, I leave the things open, but you can make the due date enforceable in that they cannot submit it unless they have an exemption. So I generally don't make things disappear after the deadline, because often when they disappear, students won't be able to see the things they've done. So I will often use start dates so that things become visible, but I won't shut off access to that drop box at the end of it. You can choose to stop accepting new submissions by putting in a due date that's fixed, and you can adjust that you can, and in particular, you can make exceptions that will apply to specific students or groups. Accept directly from Google Docs. What is it? I would suggest, in principle, one of the things, if you use text submissions, is they could put in a link to a Google Drive file and share it. Students are notoriously bad, though, at changing the permissions to share it so that it's public or visible by specific people. So I would generally suggest that you not do that. And yes, if you have an assignment that's open and there's a due date, but you allow submissions past it, they are marked as late in the grade book, and you'll see it as a word next to the grade. And you can, yeah, exactly. You can use a special access to give students an extended due date. The due date is visible. Yeah, the calendar in this is superb. But make sure all the dates are visible in the calendar. And when you create an assignment, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. And when you click on put in calendar, it will show up for students. And you can also create checklists with students and put them in each of your modules, and students can check off things they've completed. So class discussions were in a topic we covered yesterday, and we do have a recording of that we posted. So today our focus is on assignments, quizzes, and surveys.
And there's a lot to cover, so we're going to try to focus on that. So if we
have some time at the end, we're happy to do that.
Show that.
But going back through this tools, you can choose this, and you can also choose to hide students' names during assessment, as you could in Blackboard or Angel. So that way you're not biased by your perceptions of the individual student. So, and the rubric tool is superb. So, we talked about that yesterday, though, and
what's really nice is that, even if you haven't created a rubric for a particular assignment that's already existing, you can create it new here. You can also do this by going to that course admin page and going to rubrics specifically. So there are a lot of ways you can get everything you need for your assignment completed. So whether you decide to create it within this assignment or outside and link it, there's lots of ways to get to the outcome you want.
And when you created the rubric, you can make it visible to students when they start the assignment or before they start the assignment, so they know exactly how they're going to be evaluated. And one of the things we talked about yesterday is you can add a rubric file to your, to the instructions. You could link to the file. You can put it in your syllabus. There's many ways, but make sure it's shared in multiple ways with your students.
Is there a way when you're doing your grading to?
Oh, yes.
Oh, and it's such a better interface.
The question, if you all could not hear from online was, is there a way, when you're using that rubric to, mark based on different criteria? And the answer is yes. And it's a really nice interface, as John was saying.
what will happen is the rubric will appear on the side, and each of the items in the rubric, each thing you're evaluating students on, shows up as a bar with little series of rectangles next to each other. When you hover over each one, it will pop up the description. So it's a much more compact display than that ugly mess in Blackboard where you have to scroll way down if you have multiple items. And all you do is click on it and it will put in what the words are associated with that. And you just scroll through that and then you click submit and then it's done. If you remember in Blackboard, you would click OK and submit and then submit at 2 different stages. It's much more efficient, especially if you have a lot of students. So
Can the students see where they land?
Yes.
on
Yes.
that rubric?
Yep.
if you choose to make it visible, which is the default, and it's a much better default because Blackboard by default would not make the rubric visible to students, which was an incredibly stupid decision. You can choose not to do it if, for example, you're evaluating things and you're just providing them feedback on a draft, but in general, the better practice is to share it if you are grading students on it. And the evaluation, well, I guess that's all there is with the rubric there. Okay, so that's basically all you need to do. And when you're done, you just click save and close. And now we have just created an assignment, which doesn't really mean a whole lot. But now when you've assigned it, if we want to put it in a course module, well, I see there's more chat here. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know if the updated dates for exemptions were given or automatically assigned in the calendar for the students that they're affected by. So in general, it's much better designed, so I suspect it would be, but I don't know. We start using this. So once you created these things, if you want to assign it in your course, because this is a development shell where there's really not a lot there, but let's say we want to go over to Course Builder and there's nothing in this because well, it's a long story, but let's suppose we wanted to create a module in the course. So we're going to go here to the, I guess we'll have to do it this way. We'll create a module.
You can drag and
Oh,
drop it still, but you gotta.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So we drag it
in
over and let's
there.
put it here. This was just, I haven't actually used this except some stuff came over. So let's just call this an introduction module. And we've now created a course module. There's various instructions. You have all the same things for starting and end dates. And once you define a start date, let's say we'll make it visible today, we'll display that in the calendar so students can see when that module will open. You put in instructions, you can put in images. We went through all that yesterday. But now what we want to do is we want to add an assignment. So when we're in the course builder, once we've created assignments or discussions or quizzes or grade items, which are standalone items. So let's go to the assignments. We'll see the assignment here. And are we not seeing it here? Well, let's go back and look at the settings on that. So something went wrong there. So we'll go down to course admin and we'll go back to the assignment tool under assessment. And we will make sure that that is visible. So let's check the settings on it. Oh, we don't want to make visible. So we're going to edit it and just see if there's something that wasn't set correct. Availability dates and conditions. This is something unexpected.
What about visibility down by save and close?
Because the only ones that.
Okay, where was the visibility?
So there's right
Down
next to
by save
cancel.
and close? Yeah, right next to cancel.
Okay, the text of the.
You can do it in the other menu too, if you just.
Yeah,
save and close.
Okay, yes, it is not visible, and that was hidden under the auto-generated captions. So let me minimize this. Oops, I didn't mean to minimize. I meant to contract it a bit. Let's try that again. And there we go. Yes, it is not visible. And because it's not visible, we could not add it. So that's probably what happened.
Yes.
Yeah. No, we do not want to, okay.
You can change the visibility here with the bulk edit tool. You can see that above that list of assignments. And that'll allow you to change everything, you know, if you want to change the titles of the assignments, if you want to quickly change due dates and such, it's a nice tool. So once that is visible,
We can just
we can
simply drag it
on
over to
over.
wherever you want. Oh, and we want to put it probably in this module. So we'll expand the module. There's nothing else in it. And we'll just drop it in there. And now it becomes part of that module.
Again, that course builder tool is really, really nice way for you to drag and drop things that have been already created. It's easy to drag and drop placeholders. So like that introduction module we just created, that's a placeholder module. So the only thing within that module at the moment is our assignment. And so, you know, to be able to then rearrange, you know, your assignment submissions and other course files, this is really the location for you to organize your course and kind of see the full outline of that course as you're working.
So we created our first assignment, we've assigned it, and it becomes visible for students as soon as it hits that start date. And so that's the first part. Any questions on anything related to assignments?
And again, if you're working through your own and you want to share your screen, if you're running into anything that you want to talk through with everyone, we're excited and happy to do that. Going to check the chat here. Is there a way to make it visible to instructors alone?
Okay, yeah. Well, as the instructor, you can see it in the assignment tool and so forth. So you can see it. It just, in order to add it to the module, I guess it has to be visible. But the module does not have to be
right.
visible. So you could make the whole module invisible so students would not see it. So.
And if, you know, yeah, so you can change those, you know, the availability dates for your module. So if you want to work within that module and you know that it'll become available next Monday, you know, anything that's within that module won't be visible to students until that availability date hits.
Now, in terms of the colors, I don't think they have any particular meaning. I think it's just
Just how it's highlighted.
it's just highlighted.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be, maybe blue is for assignments. There may be color coding. I didn't really notice that in mine, but I didn't have any assignments right now. I've only have quizzes embedded. So, but basically that indentation means that it's part of that module, and a module shows up in a block on the initial screen, which is equivalent to a folder. One thing that Brightspace encourages, and most people using Brightspace encourage, is not to have multiple layers with lots of subfolders. There are better tools, and we talked about this in a session yesterday, where you can organize things using the accordion menu or tabs so that it's a more compact display, but it's a little bit more accessible, especially if students are using screen readers and so forth, to have a somewhat flatter display. And basically what will happen is students can just page through all the content from beginning to end. A really good example that shows up if you work through the asynchronous modules that are the training modules that SUNY has provided, and you'll see how it's pretty easy to do. Basically, you work through one document. When you finish that, you click on the forward arrow, which is both at the top and the bottom of each document, and it just moves you to the next. So it's a really intuitive structure, and it's encouraged that people do the same thing in their courses. So that the indentation means it's there. You can have multiple layers, but it's strongly encouraged that you remove them if you already have them, because this flatter structure within each module, where you only go one level into the module structure, is a much better practice given the way that the Brightspace interface works. Oh, yeah, and the SUNY training is superb. Sign up for the scaled webinars if you can, but at the very least, you work through the asynchronous modules and you get a nice certificate once you finish all of it.
Yeah. And everyone has access to those asynchronous modules. So once you go into your Brightspace page, you'll see that as a available course.
So that is the assignment
That
tool.
is
That's
the
probably the
assignment.
easiest one of these.
I think so, yeah.
Because it's basically like the Blackboard Dropbox. So, so let's now go back in here and
We're gonna go
we're
to
back
course
here.
admin again, and
We're-
we're gonna start with quizzes now.
And there's so much more here.
Yeah.
A really good practice, but one that we don't always use ourselves, is to work in a question library. To build the questions in the question library, as with Blackboard, you can create them all, then you can import them wherever you'd like into quizzes and so forth. You can go the other way, and that's a little bit more efficient than it was in Blackboard, but these were just some things that ported over. This was a course shell where it was from a wrong course, actually, so I just deleted much of it. And I've worked in the actual course shell for the summer, but basically, if you go to the question library, if you had question pools in Blackboard, they'll all come across as question pools now, which show up as folders in here. But basically, a really good practice is if you have a block of questions on specific topics, you can go in and create let's say we want to do something on, we want to create a new section. And the new section, let's say, is on, let's say block 1 questions, or let's say topic 1. And you could choose to hide the section title from learners, because when you put it in, you may not want to see there. You may not want to let them see how you're grouping these things. You could put in some information about it, and you have the option of shuffling text within the section. So we'll just leave that as it is. And now we have somewhere in, I've got a lot in here. Well, in any case, you can do it there, or you could just directly create new questions if you'd like. So a section is essentially a group of questions around a topic, which are like the pools in Blackboard. And then you could add questions to those by just selecting it. And somewhere. So where did that section?
John,
go?
it was at the bottom of the first page of your list.
Should be at the bottom. Oh. First page.
So if you go back in your list of your question library,
Sorry about
It's
that. Okay.
the last item. Oh, now you're showing all, so I don't know where it went.
Well, I've got a lot of stuff in here. And the things that say section header were imported from Blackboard as from a quiz where I had headers for different subtopics. Okay, now, yeah, if I remember, what did I call it?
Topic 1. But I'm curious, John, if you go to the very top of your list, can you sort by that last
Yes,
modified
let's
page?
sort by that, maybe.
Under
Here
order.
we go. Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
no. This is
no.
just to reorder the list.
There's a lot of stuff in here. So in any case, that's something I haven't worked with actually yet.
Now do control sign.
So it was topic. There it is. Okay, so we can select that,
you want to move it all the way up?
and well, yeah, we can move it, I think. No, can we? I don't think we can.
Okay. Well, it's all the way to the
so-
bottom, so. we'll
So
find
it's
it.
all the way at the bottom, and that's where I kind of thought it would end up, but it's. So let's put 200 per page and go way down to the bottom.
There it is.
There it is. Okay, so once we're in here, we can go in and edit this, and we should be able to add, well, we should be able to click on it, maybe not edit it. Go down to the bottom and choose this topic. And now we should be able to add questions to this. And you don't have to do it this way. You could just go in, create a test and add all the questions as you go. You can import questions from other sources. You could upload a file as you could in Blackboard. You could browse through existing questions and other pools and so forth, or we can just create new ones. And this is what we wanted to focus mostly on. The options you have are true, false, multiple choice, multiple select, written response, where it gives you options of how long the response box would be, short answer questions, which are usually just a few words, multi-short answer questions. So you're asking students for, say, a list of 3 states where a certain law applied, or if you're asking students for 3 compound, or whatever is appropriate. If you're asking them to solve 3 different variables, you could include all of those, and they can be auto-graded and fill in the blanks, which is just a single response. Matching questions, ordering questions, arithmetic questions, which why does it say 2 by 2? Oh, 2 plus 2. It's not, okay, never mind. Yeah, sorry. 2 plus 2, where basically it's equivalent to the algorithmic questions. Significant figures are like algorithmic questions, except they use scientific notation, and you could require the units as part of it. And you can also have a Likert scale question, which is also available in the survey tool. So are there any particular question types you'd like to see?
Fill in the blanks.
Go to fill in the blanks. And here, basically, the title is optional. That's to help you find things. You could put in something there that would be useful. We'll leave that blank. You set the point. You can also set the difficulty level if you want to balance quizzes. So if you're going to draw questions from a pool, you might want to draw from a pool where the question level, the difficulty is all the same, and so forth. You could insert an image in it if you want to use that as part of it with appropriate alt text. And Brightspace is really good where wherever you insert an image, it automatically prompts you for alt text. And you can, so let's say we just want to use one blank and we just have one text box. So let's say,
Which country has the highest incarceration rate? Or blank country has the highest incarceration rate?
well, either way. So you can specify the size, and 30 should be enough for that. And then you add the correct answer.
That's the title still, so.
Oh, it's
if you
still the
wanna
title. Okay.
Scroll down.
Sorry.
It just, you.
I'm sorry. So here's the correct answer. So you would put, say, the United States, or you could put the US, and then you could add new versions of it. And in each case, you want that to have a weight of 100%, 100. Or if you want to get partial credit for some answers, if they, if that's appropriate, and you can add an answer as many as you want. So if we go back down, we have the US, we have the US, you could have the United States of America and so forth. And on each of those, or what you could do is, if you want to have United States, you could make that a regular expression. So it will search for that string in the text. So if someone wrote the United States of America, would that be more than 30 characters? Well, in any case, if they found United States, it would mark it as correct. If you want to be really sticky about it, you could require that it be case sensitive. You probably don't want it to be.
Depending on, your question, what that answer
And how
is.
obsessive you are about it. Yeah. So, and then you can provide more text, I guess. For that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a.
I think it's, I think you're supposed to put like the part of the text and then what the answer will be.
Oh,
the
and then
other
followed
part
by the
the
rest of it.
text.
That may
Yeah.
be, so you could have a blank in the middle of it. But I think that would still work.
Yeah.
Well, we can try it. And then if you want, you can put in a question hint, that's optional. And then you can put in question feedback after it, and then we can
can preview it.
We should
too,
be able to
so-
preview it. We're at a bit of a loss here because
Yeah,
the text is, the captions are covering the bottom of our
Preview
screen.
is that one right there.
This
You know,
one?
and then you
Yeah.
zoom in.
Okay, let me make this window a little bit smaller. We're covered by everything here. Okay, let's preview. There we go. Okay, preview. There we go. The field cannot be empty. So yes, apparently you have a blank in the middle. So let's go back, and it tells you what the error was, and Maggie was right on that. So let's go back.
Please scroll down.
So if the scroll wheel
Click
work,
on it, that's a link there.
yeah, no, and that just gives you instructions, but
Oh, it does.
we know what the problem is, I think. So the question is, so something like, I think, the highest incarceration rate.
Oh, your problem is you added a choice and you didn't fill it in, but you didn't
I'll
do.
take it
Oh,
just US.
okay.
Is,
Okay, and
So
maybe
something like
that
that.
would work. Okay, and let's see if that works. If we, this is why you really need two monitors when you're doing these types of things. Now it shrunk. There we go.
and previews right there.
Yeah. Here, there we go. And now it worked. And so then there should be an option to test it, I believe. Did click
I think you
preview
might
and it
have
was
saved
accepted.
it. It's hard to tell. I think it was save and new.
Let's try that. Field cannot be empty. Answer one is required. Field cannot be empty. So let's take another look. This is one we didn't try yesterday because it seems so simple.
We will, we'll just hit cancel here. And so it should be in here, right? So here's the, we'll just preview it now. So the highest incarceration rate is in, I mean, okay, we could have worded this a little bit better, but answer is United States, US in 2022.
In the field. Let's take a look at the answer fields. I think it may have been, we may have had specified two different ones, maybe.
Oh, for the
Oh.
other one, that's why.
Well, but it said text field. It said, well, let's try previewing it. Because a weight of 0 should have still been a weight. But that was the issue, I guess. Okay. So if we type in the response, well, so it should be correct. Okay, we got it. So
There's-
apparently
Yeah, fill in the blanks.
the blank is expected in the middle of a sentence. So make sure you put in
Yeah.
the preceding and the ending parts.
Yeah, and you can, I think we had added text to be at the end of, yeah, I think that is what happened, Casey. You can remove, you don't have to have two text boxes on either end. We had accidentally added the second text box, which is why it prompted us to add that in. So,
Okay, so there's a lot of things here. SUNY gives you a sandbox, you can use it, but you actually have your full featured one here, and that has all the integrations that are currently integrated. So it probably, in this sense, makes more sense to work directly in your course. The question library in DLE is it pools in Blackboard, or while the question pools with, right, the menu. How will add-ons like hypothesis and perusal be integrated into the assignments? Basically, you would add a hypothesis or perusal assignment, which will be available within here as one of the integrations. And then you can connect that within that assignment to the gradebook, just as you do in Blackboard. It's not working yet, but it should be soon. One of the issues is in SUNY, because it's a system-wide thing, they had over 400 integrations that they had to do. They have now reached, as of last Friday, over 200 of those, but the rest are gradually moving forward. So importing questions from Blackboard, when you import your course, all the questions will come over from Blackboard. So that will happen automatically. Well, we can, yeah, so we can demonstrate multiple choice in just a second. And in fact, yeah, as Casey said, you can export a pool from Blackboard, but if you import your course, they'll automatically all come over. But you can do it with specific blocks as well. But there is a problem with numeric country. The answer is the US.
There are actually a number of states that have higher incarceration rates than most countries.
And the question was, why are there two text boxes for this? I think there was only one in the actual question. And
So,
maybe,
you know, when you scroll up to where it says, scroll up to where it says add blank or add text, you can change those numbers to suit your question. So if you scroll up to, keep going, one more. Okay, right here. So where it says add blank and add text, so you can add
multiple blanks.
Multiple blanks. You can add multiple texts before and after, and
Yeah.
So it was assuming I think it assumes that the blank is in the middle of a sentence rather than just at the end. And in fact, the fill in the blank logically would be in the middle, because if you'd use a short answer response, if it was just a standalone question, which is what I was essentially setting up, I think.
Can you talk about that?
Well, that would be just doing a random, the shuffle option is within a test pool, within a pool, doing, or within a section head, doing a random shuffling of the
Random
questions
order.
within that. So
Yeah.
if you have, say, 10 questions, you could randomly sort them so each student would see a different order. And you can also have the option of selecting a certain number of them. So if you have a pool, you might have 100 questions and draw 2 of those for each student, for example. So, and there is a question about rounding error for fill in the blanks. And there's help there. Thank you, Michael, for sharing that, or Casey for sharing that. Now, rounding error for fill in the blanks, you wouldn't use a fill in the blanks for numeric questions. You'd probably use the arithmetic question for that. And then you can set the rounding error by setting the number of digits and the range that you're willing to accept. So, you could set it to, if you want it out to 1 decimal point, you could have a rounding error of 0.05 and specify the number of digits that you are requiring. So the arithmetic questions and the significant digits questions would take care of that. Okay, so, but there was a request for multiple choice, and I think maybe we can do that a little bit more easily. So we're going to save and close this one. Now, if you're creating a pool, by the way, before we close this one, if you want to do a variety of versions of a question, one of the options is to do save and copy, and then you can create multiple versions by changing the answers, changing the questions a little bit, but using the same basic format. Or if you want to just save and create a new one, you just click save and new as you do it, except it's assuming that it's going to be the same question type. So we don't want to do that. I thought it might have given the option. We're going to then, we're going to save and, well, we're going to cancel. So, and we're going to now create a new question. And this time we'll do a multiple choice one. And the multiple choice ones, I think, or should be less likely to be problematic. How do we turn off the annotation?
like
Or the, it's covering.
subtitles. Right, this one.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So what was happening is we couldn't access the tools on the bottom and you were seeing them okay, but we
But our,
weren't.
yeah, subtitles were blocking our
And I don't
options.
And somehow we got out of there. Okay, so now we can get back to a full menu and with, it's the usual sort of format. So you would put the question here and you would put answer A or answer 1, answer 2. We'll just go through and put each of these. You can add more options if you'd like.
So default is 4 options, but you can add answers. You can randomize the answer order underneath too.
You could make it 2 or 3 by just deleting some of these, or you could add new ones. You could randomize it so people would see them in different order.
And you'll want to use the radio button to indicate on the left side to indicate the correct answer.
So let's say answer 2 is correct, and then that's it. So it's very much like a multiple choice tool anywhere. So now we have 2 questions in this pool. We could add, what other question types would you like to see? Multiple select is the same type of thing, except you can have, maybe that would be a good one to demonstrate, where you can have multiple responses. And let's say, so which of the following are correct? And basically you could put, we'll just say this one is correct and this one is incorrect. And that's probably not the best option. Let's just say A. And, yeah, okay, answer 1, answer 2, answer 3, answer 4. And let's say that A and C are both correct. So what you would do is you would just click this and this is being correct. And then what happens is you're asking how, it's asked you how you want to score this. And you have the option of just giving credit for the correct selections. So if they, so what that does basically is, because it's a quarter point per question, per answer, if they check a box that's not supposed to be correct, they lose a quarter of a point. If they choose everything correct, whether, let me rephrase that. So if they choose only the correct answers, all 4 of the choices are correct. If they choose, let's say, if they choose 3 of the answers as correct when only 2 of them are, they would get 3/4 of the point score in this case. If they choose all of them, they would end up with a 0 because they would have they gain 0.25 for each of the correct choices they made. It could be an all or nothing where they have to answer all the answers correct, where they have to make exactly the correct choice to get any points on the question. Or you could give them only, let them, I'm not sure how that one would work, with 0.5 points per correct answer, but it's a limited selection. That one, the right minus wrong would be you add up the right points and you subtract the incorrect ones where it's a quarter point each.
So if they figured out that correct answers one, they could mark all
All
of
of
them.
them
and
and
still get the
and
full
get the full
points.
points, right?
Yeah, and you wouldn't want to do that because, yeah.
Not
So
necessarily.
what I would probably do is use the second option or the 4th. I'm not sure really what the difference is. Anyone?
Avoid these types of questions.
Yeah, I think the, the all or nothing is probably, what most people would probably default to. But if you wanted to give them partial credit, you would pick the correct selections. Wait, can you go to those options again?
Yeah,
You would pick the correct answers, I think limited selections. If you gave, you don't think so?
I'm not sure because,
I think if you, like, if they only picked one correct answer and they didn't indicate any other answers, then
Oh, I
I
see.
think they would,
so if they picked a subset of the correct
Right.
answers,
yeah.
maybe, yeah. We could play with that
Yeah, we
because,
could play with it and, yeah. See what,
If you really want to be strict, you could do the all or
You could do
nothing,
the all or
but,
nothing. You know, I probably would have defaulted to the right minus the wrong selection. So if they picked one right and one wrong, they would, you know, kind of balance each other out. You know, they'd get half the credit.
and now there is a question in chat about the difficulty level for a new question. And I am not seeing the difficulty on this. Was that on a previous
I
screen?
think- Yeah, so if you go to options.
I just looked there.
does it not have that there?
It's
It
not
was
there.
on a previous.
It wasn't,
screen.
I thought it was certainly on the previous, the
Yeah, the
other
previous type.
page. Let's just do a save, and let's take a look at that question again to see. So, oh, there's a difficulty. So it shows up here. So it looks like 1 is the default, but you can go in and edit that by maybe here. I am not seeing where to edit that option. We had it on
Yeah,
the short answer type
Maybe when you
questions,
started the class, you signed off.
but you should be able to edit it. Maybe, let's try that. Oh, maybe here. If we click this and choose edit values. Yes, so we can change it from the menu. So if we find that question is more difficult, or if we reevaluate the question, we could do that. And you could make it mandatory so that if there are some questions in the poll that you want to be randomly selected, and if you want some that everyone would answer, then you have the option of making some of the questions mandatory. So everyone gets that specific question, which is a nice feature.
Yeah, which was, you know, it was a bit, there was a lot of workarounds in Blackboard to, you know, do that. You'd have to create your own section.
You had
and
to
then,
create a new
you know,
block
pull-
just for
right,
that.
Create a new block just to do that. So that is a nice feature.
And there was a request for multiple choice questions, so let's do that. It's very much like the multiple choice, except you only have 2 choices, which are predetermined. Let's say we'll go back to the incarceration question. The US has the highest incarceration rate of any country in let's say 2021, because we don't really
Sure,
have those
yeah,
rates for now.
2022 is not-
It's not going to change at any point in the near future. And then again, you can adjust the number of points for it and click save, and there it is.
John, I've got a question on importing questions from a pool. Can I share my screen actually?
Sure.
Yeah,
Let me stop the share.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed. Okay. So this is like the basic template they give you when you import. And the thing I'm most excited about is this part here where you can have an image associated with your question. And it looks like, you know, I have had, basically my question is, does anybody have any experience with this? You know, it says this, no images folder is assumed to be under contents, course path directory. And then there's an image folder. And then inside of there are images you can draw from. And I'm really interested in using that, but I don't understand exactly what that means.
Okay, that would be within the course. Do you have your course open?
Yes. Let me drag it over.
I'm guessing, but I think I know what that solution is. If you go back up to go back to that main page,
Yeah.
the course tools.
Can you see it? I moved it over to my second screen.
Yep.
Okay. Course tools.
And then open course admin.
Mhm.
You should be able to see somewhere in a file, manage files.
Oh, right here. Okay.
And that will take you to your course path. And what happens is you would create a new folder,
Called
which would be
images.
images. You would
Great.
upload the images separately, and then
So
you
you'd
would
have
put
to-
in.
Okay.
So
Okay.
once you created that, you would then import all the images that you use into here. You'd upload them,
Oh,
and
That
then
looks like
you
a
could
drag
link to
and
them
drop.
once you're in the course.
that looks like it's a drag and drop. So that would be great. Oh, awesome. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, the interface is pretty intuitive once you get used to it. There's a little bit of an adjustment getting to it, but it's, you know, it's pretty well designed. And I think that's how you do it. I may be wrong, but that's a logical way of doing that, I think.
Thanks.
So I see some questions in the chat that we missed. If we use questions that cannot be automatically graded, well, actually, let's go back. I think there's a. Okay, yeah, so there was instructions on using regular expression. Basically, regular expressions is just a string search. It's a computer programming term. And we use items that cannot be automatically graded, like an essay. How do we go to grade them? What happens is there's a tool in Bright. There's multiple ways of getting to it. I found actually 4 ways. The easiest way is if we go back to course admin, one of the options is to look at the tool called Quick Eval, and that will show you all the work that you have that you can grade, and then you could just go in and grade it very much like you did in Blackboard or any other learning management system.
Yeah, so those questions will come up in that screen. So course admin, quick eval.
So we would go to course admin, and I was just doing that last night, actually,
assessment.
because I'm in the 3rd week of my class. So that would be under assessments and here. You could also go to the grade tools and select it. But well, because this course is not active, I don't have anything to grade, but you'd see a whole grade, and there's no students in this. You'd see all your students and all the work in each column would be one of the gradebook items, and you could just go through and grade it. And it's a pretty intuitive interface. Let's go back for the questions we missed. I think we answered that. Would students know how this is graded? That was actually about 5 or 6 minutes ago. Lynn, how this is graded? What do you mean by that? Was that the multiple select option? Oh, for the fill in the blank. Could put in the instructions, the details of that. So, you know, if you're going to be a stickler for capitalization, you could say, you know, make sure you use appropriate capitalization.
You can also use, you know, there's an option to add a hint, you know, so if you, you know, if students were, you know, struggling on understanding the question, you can, you know, give them more clarity there as well. And that would be question by question.
Difficulty level factors into the question shuffle. I don't know. I think that more comes
Yeah.
into your choice. What I would suggest is if you're going to, you want tests to be balanced, and if you're going to use random selection, you may want to create some pools of more challenging questions and have each student get 1 or 2 of those in a given pool, because you don't want some students to end up with all lower level difficulty questions and
Right.
others with higher level. So you may want to do that.
Your exam to choose like.
I don't think that's an option. I'm not sure. I haven't tried it yet, actually, because I already had pools defined. I don't think so, though, from what I've seen, because in a pool, there's a list of questions and the only options are how many questions to draw from that pool. So you'd want pools that were all at a similar level of difficulty. So if there's a topic where you want some easy questions, some moderate questions, and some high level questions, you probably would want to create one pool for the easier questions, you know, the lower level cognition type ones, another one for the intermediate levels, and another one that has a higher level of cognition perhaps. So, you know, but you want to group them in ways so that every student ends up with an equivalent test.
Well, and it's a, you know, using those different blocks or those different sections, as Brightspace calls it, is really good practice to, you know, interleave different, you know, material from different, you know, chapters or different modules of the course. And so that is a really nice practice in creating your quizzes, especially if you're doing low stakes quizzing.
And following up on that, one tool that we're getting back that we lost when we downgraded to Blackboard from Angel is that we used to have the ability to do section heads where there was a block of questions that appeared in that. You can use section headers now for a pool of questions. And basically what that means is you could have a general setting for a question or a general setup for a question, and then you could say, use the information below to answer the following 5 questions. And then you could have a number of questions that are drawn based on that set of information. So you don't have to duplicate that in
That
each
is
question.
nice.
Now, if you are using one of the options to only display one at a time, you can set the question pool up or the section to actually put that information at the top of each question without having you to manually type that. So we're getting back a really handy feature, because before you had to manually add that to every question that you use the same information. So
Well,
now.
also, if you wanted to do the.
Right, and this way you can, essentially the pool is tied to the section header and they're all kept together automatically. You can randomly sort them within that block, or, select
where
3
it's
out of
up-
10,
Up in your task or whatever too.
but they'll all be logically kept together. And then you could randomly sort
Yeah.
the sections as well, so they're not appearing in the same order.
That like question 3 is really. You know.
And yeah, because it made a mess when they were spread out that way.
Yeah.
And now there was a question, is it possible to have more than one type of format of questions on the same quiz? Yes.
Absolutely.
So you could have a mix of essay questions, short answer, fill in the blank, ordering, multiple choice, multiple select, and so forth. Yeah, there is that issue with uploading numeric response questions, and that's something they need to fix. Can you show us where we would see the list of categories and how to create categories from assignments brought over from Blackboard? What will happen is the categories will be the names of the pools that you used in Blackboard. So each pool that you had defined in Blackboard will come over as a category. And that's what when we looked at my, well, we went to course admin, and then we went to the question bank.
John,
Library, sorry, the question library, which was under
Quizzes.
other quizzes, yes. What happens is these are the categories. So this was a practice quiz that I just put together for students to work through and so forth. So that will all come over. You can't upload math equations due to too many equations, links to numerical tables and files. Yeah, there is a bit of a problem with importing numerical questions, and that's something that Casey has run into. So you may have to rewrite numeric and math equations, or at least some of them. I'll have to double check to make sure they're all working.
John, anything that was a numeric response question in Blackboard imports correctly into D2. Well,
Does it import as a short answer instead of a?
it converts it to a short answer text format. And so if the student doesn't enter exactly that set of digits, it's graded incorrect.
But you could also, well, a really crude workaround is to use regular expression and just search for, if you have students, if you tell them to add at least 3 digits, you could have search for the first 2 of those with rounding or something. It's not ideal, but it could be a workaround that could get it to work. I think
You'd still have to edit every single.
you still have to edit every single response. And if you're doing a big pool, as you do, that would be a mess.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, I don't know, Dennis's question about categories, was that about categories in the grade book? Or is that categories? of
Yeah,
questions?
it's in terms of cleaning up categories so you could then weight the grades.
Oh, yeah, we'll
yeah.
be diving
Okay,
into
that's
that.
probably in the graded, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
wait, is that the grade book or is that the categories for the
Well,
question?
I wouldn't want practice quiz, for example, or
Oh, right. Well,
quiz.
you can change the names. I mean.
Right, that's, yeah,
those-
and
Yeah, so,
then assign them a weight down the road. Like 20% of the grade is quizzes.
well,
John,
what would
he
happen
means-
is when you build the quiz, these were all things imported from Blackboard and, but basically I think you can name them anything you want. And these names were just things that I had created for students to practice before they took the higher assessment. Many of these were just literally for practice.
Right, that's about, if they were like, if you had 5 times 4 is 20, so 5 different categories, you want to make sure you only have 5 categories So then they equal 20% of the grade. And I don't want to get into grade book. I just want to make sure I don't want all these different random categories.
Right. Well, see, these are categories of questions. These are not the quiz types that you'll be using in the class. You'd be creating a quiz by drawing from these pools, which is something we didn't really talk about. So what you would do then is you would do a new quiz, and then you would draw in any of the categories. And you put the restrictions on the quiz. You need a name for the quiz. So you would create the quiz, which is the title that students would see by drawing from those questions. And then you would connect it to the grade book, and we will, so let's go back and give it a name just to make this happen. And that would be good in theory. If the scroll wheel would work on this mouse. So let's call this, let's say you want to say quiz 1. And that's what students would see. Then you would assign that to a category, which would be a gradebook category. And we don't have any categories defined for the gradebook here, but then you would add questions. You could either create them directly in the quiz, or you could draw them from one of the pools. The pool is just a good place to put it because it would allow you to reuse questions. If you want to give students some space practice, some interleave practice, and so forth, you could have them call back some information from earlier things they had done. Yeah, so the gradebook categories, we'll talk about in the next section in just a few minutes, actually. Any quick last minute questions?
Just a quick note. So creating a survey, we didn't really get a chance to talk about, but it's the very same process as creating a quiz, but you don't have the assessment tool. You also have the option to make it anonymous. So you can still access that through your course admin and going to survey from there.
Yeah,
So
the interface is identical.
it is
There's
identical.
more Likert scale type question options, but otherwise it's exactly the same. Should math professors be required to use WebAssign instead of creating questions in Brightspace? If you want to cause your students to spend a tremendous amount of money, then yes, and it's a good tool, but it is more expensive. WebAssign is really good, and it's been used very, very extensively. It's not that cheap. Yes.
No, it is not inexpensive, but I'm talking with Sean and CTS as at least a short-term solution to our problem.
Yes.
And my statement has been and will continue to be that students should not have to pay for something that was taken away from them.
We want students to have the ability to do this, and it would be really nice if it didn't cost our students more, especially because the students who are least likely to buy it at the start of the semester are the students who are least likely to be successful. So it's to the extent to which we can keep this affordable, that would be wonderful. It is expensive though, and institutions generally don't pay for it, but right now you need something to be able to get through the fall classes, but this is something that Brightspace really should work on. And if this moves up through SUNY and SUNY applies some leverage to get them to import numeric questions, this problem would go away because you have a good strategy for doing that. And in principle, that should not be a major programming task. And, we do have the power of SUNY, to use that phrase, behind us, in that SUNY has a lot of leverage if this could be approached from a system level as an issue facing a lot of people. In the meanwhile, yes, you need to do something like WebAssign. But if you're creating questions new, and you're willing to do it manually, it can work, but it is a lot of work. Web work, I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, but that might be something that the STEM people might be more familiar with.
Okay, so the video feedback is more limited than the brochure might suggest. Video feedback should be really short. And one interesting thing is that the videos you create in here do not port to a new course. So it's okay for providing short feedback, but we haven't really, we'll talk about it tomorrow, but it's not something we've done that extensively. It's a nice feature, but it's pretty limited. And we can talk about limitations on it tomorrow. Okay.
So we're gonna stop this recording and we're gonna jump back in here in a minute. So hopefully see you all soon.
And meanwhile, play with us.
Yes.